President Trump also spoke several times about the plea deal his former national security advisor, Michael Flynn, took from the Mueller investigation. First, we heard from the president on Twitter. He posted, quote, "They gave General Flynn a great deal because they were embarrassed by the way he was treated."
So here's the embarrassed word again, Mika. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, well, it is embarrassing. The FBI said he didn't lie, and they overrode the FBI. They want to scare everyone into making up stories that are not true by catching them in the smallest misstatements. Sad.
Wait, I'm
hunt.
confused.
Oh, boy.
I'm confused. He's now saying
it's okay
that General Flynn didn't lie? I mean, he said he didn't lie. He did. I'm so confused.
He followed up on that tweet later in the day twice.
It's a terrible system we have. It's going on right now with General Flynn. The FBI said he didn't lie.
I saw your tweet on that about
But Mueller said he did lie. So they took a man who's a general and a respected person and a nice man. And I don't even know what he said about me because, you know, maybe they scared him enough they don't make up a story. But I have a feeling that maybe he didn't. He's a tougher kind of a guy than Cohen. But they took a general that they said didn't lie, and they convinced him he did lie, and he made some kind of a deal. And now they're recommending no time. You know why? Because they're embarrassed that they got caught.
Well, the FBI said Michael Flynn, a general and a great person, they said he didn't lie. And Mueller said, well, maybe he did. And now they're all having a big dispute. So I think it's a great thing that the judge is looking into that situation. It's an honor for a lot of terrific people.
He's actually fishing, Mika. He's done it with Manafort, and now he's doing it with Flynn. Like an old guy just sort of alone on a bridge, fishing, hoping that he gets a bite. That maybe Flynn, maybe Manafort will listen to him and cross the prosecution and get pardoned. It's very obvious what he's doing.
On Fox News, Chris Wallace picked apart the president's defense. Here he is, and also what some of what Judge Andrew Napolitano had to say.
Michael Flynn, the president says, you know, Mueller says he lies. Flynn said he didn't lie. What he neglects to mention is that the president fired him 3 weeks after he became the national security advisor. Why did he fire him? For lying. So the president fired the man for lying, who he's now defending against lying. He says Michael Cohen, you know, it was this minor functionary. Who was Michael Cohen? Michael Cohen was the chief counsel for Donald Trump. He was the guy that you had to go see if you wanted to get something done with Donald Trump. He was his fixer. And, you know, I've covered a lot of these cases where somebody flips and the prosecution says, look, I'm sure that you will consider this guy who flipped as an unsavory character. But remember, we didn't bring him into this case. It was, in this case, Donald Trump who brought him into this case. It was Donald Trump who chose him to be his lawyer and his representative. And you know, I kind of am a little surprised when the president says, look, I didn't tell him to do anything wrong. I mean, he was doing all these things. Last time I checked, a lawyer does what you ask him to do. He's not supposed to break the law, but he does what you ask him to do. When he doesn't do things you don't ask him to do. It's not like they go rogue on you.
A very, very telling statement came out of the judge's mouth yesterday. The judge finding that the president ordered and paid for Michael Cohen to commit a crime.
Donald Trump said that was not a campaign violation because it wasn't involving the campaign. It was a damage control payment.
Unfortunately, the president wasn't in the courtroom, and the people who were, the federal prosecutors who had a statement from David Pecker, the guy that owns the National Enquirer, said it was for the campaign. The prosecutor said it was for the campaign. Michael Cohen said it was for the campaign. The president wasn't there. Maybe he should have had lawyers there. So if you make an honest mistake in failing to report something, or if you take $100,000 and you're only supposed to take $2,500, you can correct that by returning the money, paying a fine, and correcting the report. If you do this as part of a scheme to hide it, then it's not a civil wrong, then it's a crime. That's what the judge found yesterday.
Wow.
Boom. Willie Geist. A lot of good information right there from Fox News. First of all, Judge Napolitano lays it out clearly and perfectly. If you make a clerical error, that's fine. You'll pay a fine. Everybody does it. But if there's a conspiracy to hide a campaign contribution, as David Pecker and his attorney and the judge and the prosecution said yesterday there was, that's when it becomes a felony. And what about Chris Wallace? My gosh, I know his dad, Mike Wallace, would be proud of him. He's tough as hell, and again, nails it on 2 points. It was Donald Trump who, when he fired General Flynn, he fired him because he said he was lying to the FBI. He had to fire him because he was lying.
To add something else to the conversation, Susan, that gets lost in this, Donald Trump was on tape with Michael Cohen. We got a tape this summer. This was in September of 2016, discussing a plan to pay off the Playboy model Karen McDougal. And talks about setting up a shell company to do that. Trump is heard on the tape saying pay with cash. Trump's only defense was that it was a doctored tape, and what kind of a lawyer tapes his client, but he didn't even contest the content of what he said. So everything we're talking about is true, and these are the next steps along the road. He's on tape talking about it with Michael Cohen.
He's on tape, and he's also been on tape for other things that actually, as we know, the Access Hollywood tape, that did not hurt him among his base. What he has to be concerned about now is that those clips that you showed were on Fox. And when you start seeing that network trying to give a straight response, he has to be concerned, because not only that, other Republican government officials are looking at that. Other U.S. senators, that's where he has to worry about the cracks. And that's what it's starting to lend itself to. So I think that's another reason why the president's hopping in and out of town for 2 weeks, to be away from all this.
So, Matt Miller, what's likely to happen next with the Stormy Daniels McDougal allegations? Trump has his story, which really seems kind of overruled by the facts at this point, implausible. Who makes the next move?
I think the Southern District of New York will. If you look what's coming next, I think it's hard to see how the Trump organization doesn't get out of this without either pleading guilty to a crime or being indicted. There's an executive at that organization who approved the reimbursement of Michael Cohen, which was a fraudulent scheme. They created these fraudulent invoices, called it legal services. It wasn't. It was an illegal corporate contribution. We don't know who that executive was, but I think you could probably assume it was one of the children. Whoever that is, Eric or Don Jr., has their own criminal liability. And I think the problem here for the president is he's now fighting on too many fronts. You have his campaign under investigation. You have his foundation under investigation. You have his transition, his super PAC, his White House under investigation. And when you have all that happen, there's cross-pollination among these investigations, where you see a witness who the government flips in one investigation, provides incriminating investigation about another track. You saw Mike Flynn, who was cooperating in as many as 3 different investigations. Rick Gates has apparently cooperated with the Southern District of New York prosecutors about their investigation into the inaugural fund. So the president, the problem he has is he has to win all of these. He has to have all of these investigations not find any incriminating evidence. And when you have so many investigations, when you have exposure on so many fronts, it leaves that increasingly unlikely as an outcome for him.
It really does. And you look at all of the legal challenges he has facing him, and then you look at his legal team, or his lack of a legal team. My God, it would take a strong law firm of 500 lawyers in private practice to do cleanup work, legal cleanup work and defense work on the 30, 40 years of possible fraud that Donald Trump has committed in all of his organizations over the past 4 decades. And he remains